It all started with that feeling, that nagging, unsettled kind that creeps up on you when you're just not quite right about something but can't pin down what it is. I'd been with her for nearly 4 years. We were planning our wedding, me, her, and a future I'd convinced myself was solid. She was everything I thought I wanted: beautiful, funny, smart, caring. Or so I believed. The night I found out, I was sitting on the couch, flipping through her journal, something I'd never done before, but I guess I'd been feeling more restless lately. She left it open on the coffee table after breakfast, and I noticed some pages were just a little more worn than the others. I thought, what's the harm? Maybe I'd read a few entries, see how she really felt about this whole wedding thing. That's when I saw it. A series of secret messages scribbled in her handwriting, hidden between the lines of a mundane journal entry about her day. It was her talking to someone, our mutual friend Matt. They'd been texting, apparently, and she'd kept it all tucked away in her journal. My stomach dropped. I read the words, her tone mocking, flirtatious even. It was about me, about how she'd been pretending to be the perfect bride, how she was so over it, how she was sneaking around with Matt. My fingers froze around the pen I'd been holding. The room suddenly felt too hot, then too cold. I stared at the words, then back at her face in my mind. How could I have missed all the signs? The late nights, the secretive texts, the way her phone vibrated like a live wire whenever I looked at it. I'd always brushed it off as innocuous, but now I saw her real game. She'd been lying right in front of me. I couldn't breathe properly. My chest tightened and my palms grew clammy as I clutched the journal tighter. I was angry, so furious I could taste it. But there was also this cold, sinking feeling in my gut that told me I'd been blind, a fool to trust her. She played me, and I had no idea how deep it went. I sat there for what felt like hours, staring at those words, the noise of the world muffled behind my skull. This wasn't just a fling or a one-off mistake. This was betrayal, plain and simple. And it was right there in black and white, tucked away like some dirty secret she thought I'd never find. I ran my fingers through my hair, feeling that familiar burn of rage. So I ask myself now, how did I not see the signs? All those little things, her late texts, the way she'd suddenly disappear, her secretive smiles when she looked at her phone. Those weren't random. They were clues, and I'd ignored them because I wanted to believe in her. I wanted to believe we were building something real. And then I wondered, what now? Do I confront her? Do I walk away? The truth is, I don't know if I can ever trust her again, not after seeing that journal. That moment in her quiet handwriting, mocking and sneering about me, cut deeper than any punch. I felt my stomach twist, a sick mixture of betrayal and anger. I slipped the journal back onto the table, my mind racing. The room felt heavier, like I was carrying a stone in my chest. I knew she'd be home soon. The question is, what do I say? How do I even start to get past this? Or do I just burn everything down and walk away? I've never felt so lost about what comes next. Right now, I want to confront her, but I also want to destroy everything that reminded me of her betrayal. That journal, her secret, was the first brick in the wall I didn't know I was building around myself. I think I'm about to break it apart, piece by piece, and see what remains. But I have no idea what she's going to say when she walks through that door, or how I'll hold myself together afterward. The truth is, I don't even know if I want to. When she finally came home, the house was too quiet. The kind of silence that presses down on you, making every breath feel heavier. I'd already made up my mind that I wouldn't let her see the storm inside me. I kept my face neutral, but my hands trembled just beneath the surface. I watched her walk in, so normal, so casual, and it made me sick. She dropped her bag by the door, smiled that familiar, innocent smile, and asked, "Hey, babe, how was your day?" Her voice was sweet, too. Sweet, I clenched my fists and forced a little smile back, knowing full well what I'd seen. I had to get her to slip up. I couldn't just come out swinging, I needed to bait her. I looked at her carefully, trying to act casual. "Good," I said. "Did you do anything interesting today?" She hesitated, then shrugged. "Just errands, nothing special." Her eyes flicked to the table where I'd left that journal earlier. I saw her glance and my stomach knotted tighter. "You know," I said, voice low, "I was thinking about the journal you left out." Her face froze for a second, then she smirked. "Oh, that old thing, just some notes I was making." It was too rehearsed. I could see the flicker of guilt behind her eyes, but she was trying to hide it. That was a mistake. I saw your messages, I said, watching her reaction like a predator. Her smile faltered just a little. What messages? She asked, feigning innocence. Yeah, right. I pulled out the journal and laid it on the table between us, the pages open to that secret section. The ones you hid in. Here, the ones mocking me, talking about how you're over the wedding, that you're sneaking around with Matt. Her face went pale for a second, then she blinked rapidly. I don't know what you're talking about, she said, voice trembling. That's not what it looks like. She reached out as if to grab the journal, but I stopped her. It's too late for that. I read your words. You lied to me from the start. She stepped back, eyes darting around the room as if searching for an escape route. You're overreacting. It's not what you think. She sounded desperate now, trying to deny what I just laid bare, but her trembling hands betrayed her. She was caught, and she knew it. I trusted you, I said, voice rising. I thought we had a future, but you've been playing me the entire time. How long has this been going on? She opened her mouth, then closed it again, unable to deny it. The truth was in her eyes. She'd been cheating, lying, hiding. And now I was finally seeing the rotten core. I didn't mean for this to happen, she whispered, tears welling up. It just things got complicated. I laughed bitterly. That's your excuse. Things got complicated. You were sneaking around with our friend. How much more complicated does it get? I felt my jaw tighten, my voice shaking with suppressed rage. You think you can just sweep this under the rug and I'll forget? No, this is over. Her face crumpled and she looked like she wanted to say something, anything, but the words died in her throat. I knew I had to put an end to this, to make sure she understood the damage she'd done. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. You lied to me since day one. I don't think I can trust you anymore, not after this. She looked at me, eyes filled with tears, and whispered, please, don't do this. We can fix it. I swear it's just a mistake. That phrase, just a mistake, made me feel sick. She'd been so casual about betraying me, as if it was nothing. I stared at her, feeling the bile rise in my throat. A mistake, that's all you see it as. No, I've had enough, I'm done. I turned and grabbed the keys from the hook by the door. You're not welcome here anymore. Don't try to contact me. I want my things tomorrow, and don't bother trying to explain. There's nothing left to say. Her muffled cry was like a dagger. Please, she begged, but I didn't look back. My heart was pounding, every nerve ending alive with fury. I slammed the door behind me and walked to my car, feeling a strange mix of relief and emptiness. As I sat there in the driver's seat, I realized this was the end of everything I thought we had. I knew I'd feel this hurt for a long time, but I was also furious at her, at myself for trusting her, at everything that led me to this moment. I looked at the journal one last time in my hand. Her handwriting, her lies, burned into my mind. I knew I'd come up with a plan, a way to punish her for the betrayal, to make her feel a fraction of what I felt when I saw those words. And that's when I started to see the outline of my revenge. It wasn't going to be loud or violent, but it would hurt. I'd make her regret every single lie, every betrayal. I'd make her see what she'd lost. The question was how, and more importantly, when. The next few days were like walking through a fog. I'd wake up with that sick knot in my stomach, the image of her sneering at me in the journal still fresh in my mind. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her face, that smug look she'd had before I found out. I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd been played from the start, like I'd been blindfolded and led into a trap I didn't even know was set. I spent hours plotting, going over every detail in my mind. I wanted her to feel the exact pain I'd felt when I saw that message. I'd come up with a plan that was cold, calculated, something that would make her realize the depth of her betrayal without crossing into outright violence. That's important. I wanted her to feel the sting, not to feel like I was the villain here. First, I gathered evidence. Not just the journal, but her phone. I knew she'd probably delete those messages or hide them better, so I snuck her phone when she wasn't looking. I scrolled through her texts and photos, looking for anything that could be used as leverage. I found a few more flirtatious messages with Matt, some suggestive photos she'd sent him on a whim. I knew I'd need to be careful with how I used this. I wasn't looking to ruin her completely, but I wanted enough to make her understand she'd crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. I also started planning the reveal. I wanted her to see everything at once, to let her feel the full weight of her lies. I decided I'd send her a carefully crafted email with all the evidence attached, screenshots, photos, the journal entries. I'd make sure she knew I'd been watching, listening, and collecting for days. It was about making her realize she'd lost control of the situation. One night, I sat in my apartment, staring at my laptop, fingers hovering over the keyboard. I typed out the message I'd send her. It was simple, direct, cold. I told her I knew everything, that I'd seen her secret messages, her texts, her lies. I included the screenshots and the journal pages. I told her I'd never trust her again, that I was done pretending. I hesitated, then hit send. I watched the email land in her inbox, knowing she'd open it the next morning. I felt a strange mixture of satisfaction and dread. Was I doing the right thing? Could I really hurt her the way she'd hurt me? Or was this just my way of punishing her for breaking what I thought was unbreakable? The following day, I waited anxiously, pacing around my apartment. When her reply finally came, I was ready. Her message was frantic, full of apologies, excuses, and promises to fix everything. That's what everyone says, isn't it? The classic, "I'll do anything to make it right." But I wasn't buying that anymore. I wasn't going to let her spin her way out of this. I called her. When she answered, her voice was shaky, almost pleading. "Please, just listen. I didn't mean for it to get this far. I was stupid and I was weak. Please, I love you." I took a deep breath. Love. You betrayed me, lied to my face. You think saying that now makes everything okay. I've had enough of your lies. I want you to understand what you've done. She begged, crying on the other end, but I cut her off. It's over. I want my keys back tomorrow. Don't come to my place. Don't try to contact me anymore. I hung up before she could say another word. I felt a strange sense of relief, like I'd finally taken control. That night, I decided I'd push it further. If she thought I was just going to forget and move on, she was dead wrong. I had to make her regret her choices, make her see that betrayal comes with consequences. I wasn't just going to walk away, I was going to make her feel the fallout. I started crafting a plan to expose her to everyone, mutual friends, her family, anyone who mattered. I wanted her to understand that her actions had real, lasting effects. I'd send the evidence to those who needed to see it, let her face the aftermath of her betrayal. But I also knew I had to be careful. I didn't want to ruin her completely, just enough to make her think twice before cheating again. The idea of revenge was clear in my mind now. It wasn't about destruction, it was about justice, as twisted as that sounds. I wanted her to feel the pain of betrayal the way I'd felt it, slow, deliberate, unavoidable. The real game was about to begin. I had the evidence, the plan, and the resolve. The next step was to set everything in motion and watch her squirm. That's when I realized this wasn't just about her cheating. It was about reclaiming my dignity, one carefully laid step at a time, and I was ready to see it through. The next morning, I woke up with a strange sense of calm, like I'd finally taken control of my own story after feeling so powerless. I brewed a strong cup of coffee, sat down at my laptop, and started to execute my plan. I crafted an email addressed to our mutual friends, her family, and anyone who'd listen. I attached the screenshots from her phone, the pages from her journal, and a clear, concise message. "This is who she really is. Do with it what you will." I didn't send it right away. Instead, I double-checked everything. Spelling, attachments, timing. I wanted it to hit exactly right. Then I hit send. The moment I clicked, I felt the weight lift just a little. I'd finally done something, something that would make her realize she couldn't keep lying without consequences. While I waited, I kept reminding myself that I was doing the right thing. Not revenge for revenge's sake, but to get her to see the damage she'd caused. It was about forcing her to face the reality she'd tried so hard to hide. And I knew, deep down, that if she truly loved me, she'd have to confront her mistakes. But if she did, well, I was ready to walk away for good. The responses came in faster than I expected. First, a close friend of ours called, voice trembling. "I had no idea," she said. "Are you serious about this? I mean, I don't want to lose her, but I can't ignore what you sent me." That was exactly what I wanted, to make her face the truth, even if it meant risking everything. Then came the messages from her family. Her mother called, crying, apologizing profusely. "I never suspected she'd do something like this," she admitted. "She's always been so careful about hiding her secrets." That moment felt like a small victory. It confirmed she'd been deceitful not just to me but to everyone around her. I kept my distance, watching everything unfold. My phone buzzed nonstop, but I stayed quiet. I wanted her to feel the fallout, to see her world beginning to crumble. It was like watching a house of cards fall one piece at a time. I'd given her the evidence; she could no longer deny the truth. That evening she finally called. Her voice was strained, guilt evident. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I didn't mean for everything to get so out of hand. I was stupid. I thought I could fix it." Her words sounded hollow, like she was reading from a script she'd rehearsed. "I didn't buy it." "Fixing it," I shot back. "You lied to me for months. You cheated with Matt. You knew I was blindsided and you still kept going. How do you fix that?" My voice was cold enough to make her flinch. I could feel my stomach tighten with fury, but I kept my tone steady. "I swear I love you," she pleaded. "Please, let's talk. I want to fix this." But I knew better. Love wasn't a band-aid for betrayal. I told her I'd been patient, but now I had no choice but to walk away. "I want my things back tomorrow," I said. "And don't contact me again. I need space, time to think, to heal, if that's even possible." My words felt final, like a closing chapter. I hung up before she could say another thing. I felt a strange sense of relief, but also an underlying bitterness. This wasn't over yet. Later that night, I looked around my apartment, feeling emptier than ever. Every corner, every piece of furniture seemed to echo her absence. That's when I realized I had to do one last thing, something that would ensure she understood the full extent of her betrayal. I wasn't just walking away. I was going to make sure she paid a price, one way or another. I sat down with a deep breath and drafted a detailed letter, cold, clear, and unambiguous. I explained exactly what I knew, how I'd gathered the evidence, and what I was going to do next. The final touch was printing it out, signing my name, and placing it on her doorstep. Then I took a long, slow walk to her house, keys in hand. When she opened the door and saw me standing there with that letter, her face drained of color. She knew I meant business. I handed her the paper and watched her eyes dart over the words. She tried to plead, but I stopped her. "You betrayed me. You lied to everyone. I want you to understand. You lost me for good," I said. "This isn't about revenge. It's about making sure you never do this to someone else again." She looked like she was about to cry, but I didn't falter. I turned and left her standing there, the door closing firmly behind me. My heart was pounding, but I felt a strange sense of peace. I'd done what I needed to do. As I walked away from her house that night, I knew one thing for sure. She was going to regret what she'd lost, and I was finally free. Sometimes the only way to reclaim your dignity is to show someone exactly how much they've messed up, and then walk away. The days that followed were a whirlwind of mixed emotions. I kept busy, but inside I was a mess, relieved that I'd finally taken control, but also haunted by what I'd lost. Every time I thought about her face, her lies, a sick feeling clenched my stomach. But I told myself it was over. I'd made the decision, and now I had to stick with it. I avoided her social media, didn't answer her calls or texts, and focused on sorting out my life. The house felt emptier without her, like the walls were closing in. I'd never realized how much of my happiness had been tied up in her, how much I'd been relying on her to define my future. Now that it was gone, I had to rebuild from scratch. One morning, I was sitting on my balcony, coffee in hand, watching the city wake up. I felt a strange sense of clarity, like I'd finally seen the whole picture. That's when it hit me. She wasn't the only one who'd betrayed me. I'd been blind to her actions, but also to my own shortcomings. I'd ignored the red flags, convinced myself everything was fine because I didn't want to face the truth. I remembered that moment in her journal, the sneering tone, the mocking words. That wasn't just about her cheating; she'd been lying to herself too. I'd been naive, trusting someone who didn't deserve it, but that's on me, I guess. I let her manipulate me for too long. Still, I knew I had to do something more. I'd already sent the evidence, made the call, and handed over the keys. But I couldn't let her slip away without feeling the consequences. I needed to make sure everyone knew what she'd done. I wanted her to see the damage she'd caused, not just to me, but to everyone around her. So I started drafting a letter, something straightforward, no games. I explained everything. How I discovered her lies, how she betrayed my trust, how her actions had destroyed the future I'd envisioned. I told her I was done with her lies, her manipulations. I made it clear I wasn't going to let her pretend she was innocent anymore. After finishing, I printed out copies and sent them to her family and close friends. I wanted her to understand her actions had real, lasting consequences. I knew I couldn't undo what she'd done, but I could make sure she felt uncomfortable, exposed, and maybe, just maybe, start to realize what she'd lost. A few days later, I heard from some mutual friends. People are talking, one said cautiously. Everyone's pretty upset. She's trying to deny everything, but the evidence, it's pretty damning. That was good enough for me. I knew the truth was out there and she couldn't hide from it forever. One evening, I finally decided to confront her directly, just one last time. I went to her place, knocked on her door, and when she opened, the look of shock on her face was priceless. I handed her the latest letter, which detailed everything from the evidence I'd gathered to what I planned to do next. "I hope you understand," I said, voice tight. "You lost me, not just as a boyfriend, but as someone who ever believed in you. I'm done pretending I didn't see who you really are." She looked at me, tears brimming, but I didn't care. I'd given her every chance to make things right, and she'd blown it. Now she had to face the reality that her choices had consequences, big consequences. I turned to walk away, but before I left, I told her one last thing. This isn't about revenge anymore. It's about making sure you don't do this to someone else, because I refuse to be your punching bag or your charity project. You lost me, and honestly, I hope someday you realize what you threw away. As I walked out that door, I felt lighter. All the anger, all the hurt, it was still there, but I knew I'd done what I could. I'd handed her the truth on a silver platter, and she couldn't deny it anymore. The ball was in her court now. Looking back, I realized that sometimes the only way to reclaim your dignity is to face the pain head-on. That's what I did, and I know deep down I'll be better for it. Trust is fragile, and once broken, it's nearly impossible to fix. But I'd rather be alone than live with someone who betrays you without remorse. That's the real lesson I learned. The aftermath wasn't easy. I won't pretend that walking away from everything I thought we had was simple or painless. There were nights I replayed everything, questioning if I'd done the right thing. But deep down, I knew I couldn't stay in that toxic lie. Trust was shattered beyond repair, and I refused to be the fool again. In the weeks that followed, I focused entirely on myself, getting my head straight, working out, reconnecting with friends I'd neglected. It wasn't about proving anything to her anymore. It was about reclaiming my life. Every time I felt that familiar sting of regret creeping in, I reminded myself that I deserved better. I deserved honesty, respect, and someone who valued me enough not to cheat and lie. My emotional wounds slowly started to close. I stopped obsessing over her every move, and instead I channeled that energy into rebuilding. I found new hobbies, took trips alone, and most importantly, learned to trust my instincts again. It was a hard lesson, but one I needed to learn, the kind that teaches you not to ignore the red flags, no matter how much you want to believe in someone. Looking back, the hardest part wasn't discovering her betrayal. It was realizing how much I'd let myself ignore the signs, to keep the peace rather than confront uncomfortable truths. But now I see it clearly. Trust is a delicate thing, easy to break but painfully hard to repair. And sometimes, the only way to move forward is to walk away from the wreckage and start fresh. People often ask me if I regret doing what I did, exposing her, cutting her out of my life. Honestly, no, I don't. It was the only way I knew to truly protect myself, to stop her from hurting me any further. I wanted her to see that her actions had consequences, that betrayal isn't a victimless act. Maybe it sounds harsh, but I needed that clarity. I needed to feel like I still had some control. Now, I look at relationships differently. I trust myself more than I ever did before. I know the signs to watch for, and I'm not afraid to walk away if something doesn't feel right. I've learned that love isn't enough. Trust, respect, and honesty are what hold relationships together. Without those, everything else is just a fragile illusion. This experience reshaped me. It hardened my resolve and made me realize my worth. I refuse to settle for someone who betrays me, no matter how much I might want to believe in fairy tales. At the end of the day, standing up for myself was the best decision I ever made. It may have been painful, but it was necessary. So, too, anyone out there feeling trapped in a lie, trust your gut. Don't ignore those red flags and don't be afraid to walk away. Sometimes, the strongest thing you can do is say enough. Heal, learn, and move on. Because no matter how much it hurts, rebuilding your life after betrayal is the only way to truly find peace.